When you think of the best version of Batman, what's the version that comes to mind?
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
Oh, No, I'm referring to one that's more of a cartoon. No, this is an actual cartoon. Okay, it's Batman the Animated Series. Inspired by the Tim Burton films from the late 80s and early 90s, the series received instant acclaim from when it was originally broadcast from 1992 to 1995. The series was praised for its intricate themes, darker tone, animation, voice acting, and its modern updates to the comics, while still maintaining its faithfulness to its comic book counterpart. It spawned 2 continuation shows, The New Batman Adventures and Batman Beyond. IGN.com listed the series as the best adaptation of Batman outside the comics and the second best animated series of all time, falling only behind The Simpsons. The series was also the first in what is now known as the DC Animated Universe and spawned 2 feature films, Batman Mask of the Phantasm in 1993 and a direct-to-video release, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero in 1998. Today we're here to count down my 10 personal favourite episodes from the series. With a lot of classic and brilliant masterful episodes to choose from, this won't be easy, but I've narrowed it down to 10. So sit back and enjoy the countdown. Number 10. Trial. One of the questions that the series would often raise is Batman's worthiness as a hero. With villains like the Joker, Two-Face, Harley Quinn, the Mad Hatter, etc., you have to ask yourself, is Batman doing better or worse for Gotham when you have villains like these running amok and filling prison cells? Gotham's new district attorney, Janet Van Dorn, is more or less out to rid the city of Batman, but instead, both her and Batman are captured by Batman's enemies. They put on a kangaroo trial in Arkham Asylum with the Joker as judge, Two-Face as prosecutor, Ventriloquist as bailiff, and many of his rogues gallery appearing as the jury. They place Batman on trial with Van Dorn being forced to prove that the Cape Crusader is not the cause for everyone's turn to crime. If proven innocent, they'll be set free. Now of course, one of the biggest selling points of this episode is that the majority of our favourite villains are all in the same room together, and with writing as good as this, it's a blast to watch them bounce off each other with their larger-than-life personalities. Janet Van Dorn also presents a very reasonable case against the Dark Knight. Because he's not a cop, the criminals Batman captures are placed in Arkham Asylum, not prison for rehabilitation, and often not realising how insane these villains are. Once in the courtroom, she's able to see what Batman has to deal with on a regular basis. Her conclusion is that they already were insane long before Batman came along. For example, the Mad Hatter blames Batman for getting in the way of a woman who didn't reciprocate his feelings, but he would have killed her rather than just staying away. Poison Ivy blames Batman for being against her plants, but attacks Janet when she attempts to harm a flower, further proving that her sanity was already damaged. The episode within 20 minutes shows why we love these villains and why they're so interesting to watch. What prevents this episode from being higher on the list is its length. If it was a 2-parter, I felt we could have heard every villain's story that was seen here. However, Trial most certainly makes this list for its unique premise, mixed with excellent fan service. Number 9. Robin's Reckoning. Robin as a character for many years has often been the butt of joke among fans, for his whiny attitude, bright circus costume, and often seen as pretty useless when working with Batman. However, this episode proved to me, and I think a lot of people, that Robin's presence in Batman's life is very much needed and earned. Robin's Reckoning aims to give the beloved Bird Boy his origin story, and in my opinion passes with flying colours. During a fight with gangsters, Batman and Robin learn the name of their boss, Billy Marin. Batman forbids Robin from going up against Marin, as the name is an alias of Tony Zuko, the man who killed Dick Grayson's parents. Structurally, the episode is rather similar to their feature film Mask of the Phantasm, and even Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, in the sense that the origin is told very much through flashbacks and is non-linear. It definitely works to its advantage, as every flashback tells us something new, while the story in the present further progresses and moves on. We learn more about Dick Grayson as a child before he became Robin, him being a circus acrobat with his parents, and like Bruce Wayne, he sees them murdered before his very eyes. While in the present we see Batman and Robin growing further apart as Batman refuses for Robin to exact his revenge, knowing it's not the answer, but it leaves Robin to be underappreciated by Batman. It's a perfect story about why, emotionally, as a caped and masked hero who works outside the law, there can be nothing there, and it should never be personal. While there is conflict between the duo, they of course resolve their differences by the end, and Batman even admits the reason he distanced Robin from the investigation is because he didn't want to see his partner killed. It's a rare moment of feeling from Batman and makes Robin feel more than just an underling for Batman to order about, and this time be more of an equal. With psychological depth and heavy emotional moments, Robin's reckoning is a brilliant insight into the world's most famous sidekick.
Number 8. Birds of a Feather.
As a villain, the Penguin is considered to be a satire on high society. When you hear and see him, you get why. He looks like a man-penguin hybrid, but speaks softly and like a gentleman, and this episode aims to look at Cobblepot's almost delusional nature. After a robbery is foiled yet again by Batman, Oswald Cobblepot decides to leave his criminal past behind and becomes a reformed character. Now the downside to this is that nobody from high society welcomes him, other than Batman, who warns him to be a good little penguin. Oswald's naivety leaves him vulnerable to the machinations of socialites Veronica Vreeland and Pierce Chapman, who hope to use Oswald to boost their own ego by using him as entertainment for a party. The Penguin, along with the Joker in this series, is the only villain to not be given an origin story, but we the audience can understand why he would turn to crime, given his appearance. He'd be rejected by high society. Also, a penguin is described as a bird that can't fly, and that's pretty much Oswald's dilemma. He wants to join high society, but is unable to fly at their level. Oswald is more or less the victim in this story. He even jumps to Veronica's defense when they're attacked by goons, revealing a good heart under the ugly surface, and it's even cool to see Batman caught off guard when he assumes that Penguin is responsible. Oswald is so desperate to be accepted, he will shower Veronica with affection, but realising her betrayal, he immediately shifts back to being a criminal. But you buy it because you understand why he's like this. He's a man sitting on a lot of rage due to years of rejection, his desires being just in his reach, but never quite getting them. The Penguin may be unable to fly, but this episode most certainly flies above the rest.
Number 7. Perchance to Dream.
The series was never afraid to occasionally look at the what-if and alternate stories in the Batman mythos, and this episode aims to show Bruce Wayne's perfect world. This is a world where Bruce discovers his parents are alive, he's engaged to Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, and the Batcave no longer exists beneath his house. Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, is brilliant in this episode, as it's rare for us to see the vulnerable and even sentimental side of Bruce Wayne. We see that he's capable of leading a happy life, and even though we all know him as Batman, we almost want to see him stay in this happy, almost fairy tale life, as we know it's better for him. But just when Bruce and the audience begin to accept this life, he realises that it's all just a dream, as he can't read in this world. Apparently dreaming comes from the left side of the brain, reading comes from the right, which isn't entirely true, apparently, but the point still stands. The perpetrator behind all this is revealed to be the Mad Hatter, who wanted to keep Batman in a dream world as revenge for taking away the Hatter's own forced dreams. It's another insight into Jervis Tetcher's psyche, as he's a completely deluded man who thinks that artificial love and happiness is the same as the real thing. I also have to give props to the animation, as the bell tower climax is also brilliant. The shadows and the fight scenes are done very well here despite its TV budget. Another fun fact is that this is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman and Bruce Wayne, favourite episode of the series, and if that's not enough to convince you, then you really are living in a dream world.
Number 6. Heart of Ice.
Batman the Animated Series is often credited for the reinvention of Mr. Freeze. In previous versions of the comics and the 60s TV series, he was more or less a mad scientist with a cool, no pun intended, gun. However, writer Paul Dini wrote him as once being a scientist, Dr. Victor Freeze, who embezzled money from Goth Corp for an experiment to save his terminally ill wife, Nora. When CEO Ferris Boyle finds out, he kicks Freeze into chemicals filled with cryogenic substance, leaving Victor's body to suffer mutations where he cannot survive temperatures above zero, wearing a cryogenic suit to survive. The origin is so well written and compelling that all further depictions of Mr. Freeze have followed this story. Future comics, the Arkham games, the TV series Gotham, and even this abomination used it. This gives Freeze even more depth as a character. He's even more tragic than Batman when you think about it. Bruce Wayne's parents are dead, but he has it easy from Freeze's point of view. His parents are just dead, whereas Nora, Freeze's wife, is neither alive nor dead. She's literally on the edge between living and dying. Freeze doesn't have that closure for his loved one. He's always living in uncertainty. Furthermore, it's another tragedy Batman could have stopped, but he was unable to. Another villain he could have prevented from being created. All he can say after seeing Freeze's story is, "My God." The animation is also on top form here, as the falling snow is synonymous with the ballerina in the snow globe that the episode opens with. It represents both Freeze's condition but also his hope that one day he'll let go of the cold inside him and feel the warmth of his loved one again. Heart of Ice is a cold but confident episode that will forever be hailed as a classic.
Number 5. Almost Got Him.
One of the selling points of the series is the way Batman's rogues work off each other when they share episodes together, and they reached their peak with Paul Dini's excellently crafted episode, Almost Got Him. During a game of poker, the Joker, the Penguin, Two-Face, Poison Ivy and Killer Croc share stories about how they nearly killed Batman or almost got him. Everything about this episode works. The dialogue is spot on, even with something as dumb as Croc's story about hitting Batman with a rock.
I threw a rock at him.
The comedic timing is brilliant as we see every villain's reaction. They carry on speaking and then we hear Croc muttering,
It was a big rock.
Not to mention it's beautifully directed. You feel like you've stepped into a seedy poker bar where the criminals hang out. The greatest appeal about seeing villain team-ups is watching their unique personalities work off each other, and all the cast members show great chemistry here. You have a clown, a gentleman, a schizophrenic, a plant obsessive and a monster interacting. On paper that sounds like it would be a near impossible task, but Dini's script makes it look so easy, all in just 20 minutes, which is even more of an achievement. I could go on and on about how brilliant the dialogue is here, but I reckon that would just spoil the episode for you. I can't recommend this episode enough. It's practically a guideline on how to write eccentric dialogue without it sounding forced or alienating. The villains may have yet to get Batman, but this episode certainly gets it.
Number 4. Mad as a Hatter.
If I was to tell you that a villain based on the iconic Alice in Wonderland character would be the most relatable Batman villain on the series, you'd probably say I was mad as a hatter, but this episode will definitely prove you wrong. Jervis Tetch is a character we can all relate to. He's an employee who is underappreciated at his workplace despite his massive achievement in developing mind control, but he has unreciprocated feelings for his co-worker Alice, who is already with another man. I still connect with Jervis's romantic woes. Who hasn't wanted someone or something that they can't have? But the connection to the famous Lewis Carroll story is what makes this tale as old as time feel fresh and new. Jervis is holding on to this fictional wonderland and unable to separate reality from fiction. It's further exemplified when Alice and her boyfriend Billy break up. He simply puts on a Mad Hatter costume, uses his mind control chips to take on a perfect date that controls other people, and turning Gotham into a wonderland for him and Alice. While it does cheer her up, Billy decides to get back with Alice and even asking to marry her, which unfortunately pushes Jervis even further and uses his mind control to have Alice be his and his alone. While it's the wonderland that Jervis has wanted, Batman simply argues that all he has waited for now is a lifeless doll that will never truly love him, but Jervis is more than content with living in this wonderland away from the harshness of reality. The idea that they could create a story that's pretty cliche, but keep it fresh and new is a testament to how good this writing team was, and Mad as a Hatter more than proves this.
Number 3. Second Chance.
Harvey Two-Face Dent is considered one of the more depressing villains in Batman's rogue gallery. He's an ally of the Dark Knight who was pushed over the edge by his own physical and mental deformities, and as the title suggests, this is an episode that will give both Harvey and Bruce another chance of being friends, as Dent is taken into surgery that will restructure his face and hopefully erase the evil, big bad Harv that lurks within him. But as the surgery begins, a group of armed goons break into the room, shoot the place up and take Harvey's body. Batman and Robin, watching the surgery go in hot pursuit. The dynamic duo split up and go on leads as to who could have done this, Batman following up on the Penguin, and Robin following up on Rupert Thorne. These investigations come to nothing, and Batman realises that Harvey's captor is none other than Two-Face. On paper, that twist sounds ridiculous, but again, the episode more than proves itself with the hope that Batman clings on to for his best friend. Similar to Robin's Reckoning, where Robin learned not to let your emotions compromise a mission, Batman learned something similar here, which is why he wants to face Dent alone in the confrontation, but Robin realises Batman has let his guard down here, and being his equal, wants to help him. Robin is also a second chance here for Batman to have an ally. However, there is still a loss that Harvey Dent, Bruce Wayne's ally, will never return in full, and will always be of two minds of the subject. Second Chance is definitely an episode that will have you thinking twice about the future.
Number 2. The Man Who Killed Batman.
One of the major themes about this series is achieving fame. Many characters in this want to be famous, but they find that they're not ready for the price that comes with it, and nowhere is it better exemplified than in this episode. Sidney Debris, also known as Sid the Squid, is a small-time crook who comes to Gotham to make a name for himself in the criminal underworld. He's reluctantly brought on a drug run as bait for the Dark Knight, but, completely by accident, he pulls Batman off the roof and into an exploding gas tank. Sid the Squid is now considered the most dangerous man in Gotham, as he is the man who killed Batman. But the thing is, Sid didn't ask for any of this, as he's challenged to fight, and it's not too long before the Clown Prince of Crime wants to have a word or two with the Squid. Another great thing about this episode is that we see a city without Batman. We see the police force terrified about what they'll do next with the countless criminals out there, and we even see that Joker is losing the thrill of committing crimes, because Batman is no longer there to stop him. The Joker has a routine to all this. He causes trouble, the Dark Knight shows up, but without Batman, crime has no punchline for him. One of his finest moments is holding a funeral for him. An absurd concept, but they keep it in line with the Joker's character marvellously. It's a wonderful episode that shows what Batman means to his villains, but also the price of fame, and that's why it makes it to the list.
Number 1. Two-Face.
Whenever I see lists that compile the best episodes from this series, this two-parter usually makes it, but it never quite reaches the top spot for those lists. Now, I'm not placing it here just to be the one who's different. The reason it's my favourite is because it's the reason I decided to stick with the series, and it defined it for me. Harvey Dent is Gotham's upstanding district attorney, determined to fight crime. Like Batman, but he's able to do it all without a mask. But even he holds a dark secret. He has a split personality known as Big Bad Harv that emerges whenever he gets enraged. Crime boss Rupert Thorne gets a hold of this information and plans to blackmail Dent if he doesn't back off with preventing Thorne's own criminal activities. Sadly, an explosion results in the half of Dent's face being horrifically scarred, giving birth to the criminal Two-Face, now making his decisions with the flip of a double-headed coin. This is more or less the first time in the series where we see the origin as it is happening, a glimpse of the human beneath the monster before it emerges. What's also great about this origin is that this isn't the first time we've met Harvey. He's seen as Bruce Wayne's friend, and even has to have his life saved by Batman at one point. This was a deliberate decision by the writers as we get to know Harvey before his fall to the dark side. This is what makes the episode really emotionally devastating, as it's another death on Batman's conscience that he couldn't save, almost repeating the murder of his parents that, as a child, he couldn't prevent. It's one of the darker episodes of the series, and it's all the more stronger for it in my opinion. Everything about it makes it my favourite episode. The voice acting, the dialogue, the story beats, the lighting, the direction, I will all make it my favourite Batman the Animated Series episode. Well everyone, that's all from me. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what your favourite Batman the Animated Series episodes are, and I shall see you all later.
That's all, folks.